So we are talking the Gaelic King, a 2017 low-budget fantasy film. When you look at this cover, you might think it's actually a kind of historical, a kind of medieval film along the lines of Braveheart. It isn't. It's actually a straight fantasy film. So let's get into it. I've got to say, if you're a fan of low-budget cinema, you're going to like this one. To me, this kind of looks like a bunch of history recreation enthusiasts fighting a kind of bunch of Norwegian death metal band members. The bizarre story here focuses on this kind of royal family of Gaels, and they are kind of warring with the Picts, which is kind of two different factions in medieval history. And there's obviously conflict going on between them, and we cut to years later, and it turns out there's a greater enemy, this being some kind of demonic force which is lurking in the forest in the form of these shadowy figures led by this mysterious but beautiful sorceress. And it's up to the somewhat exiled king of the Gaels to possibly unite the Gaels and the Picts in the common fight to this kind of mystic force. Can he do it? Will he succeed? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. This is a very, very low budget film, and like I said, it reminds me of those kind of like history recreations, kind of things that you've seen. If you've ever watched a kind of TV documentary in regards to kind of medieval history, and they have those kind of dramatic recreations, it kind of looks like that, but a whole film's worth. So that's the kind of like the budget that you've got here, and the kind of the style of filmmaking. It's not particularly cinematic, if I'm honest. I kind of liked the main actor, a guy called Jake McGarry. He actually did quite an earnest performance, I have to say, as this it's kind of like dethroned heir to the kind of kingdom of Gael. And he's not a particularly strong leading man exactly, but I kind of liked it. He's somewhat fallible, and he's got this kind of little brother and stuff, which is kind of quite a kind of like cute relationship. And he kind of gets interested in this leader of the Picts, which is this kind of like red-headed woman that looks a little bit like the one from Brave. I don't know the character's name, Merida or whatever it is. So there's kind of like this kind of Romeo and Juliet thing going on, which was quite fun. It gets a little bit predictable. The thing that really kind of made me laugh are the way that they depict these kind of like fantasy bad guys. When you first see these kind of like shadowy figures rise up, it looks like it's trying to be a Matrix rip-off. I'm not kidding. They kind of black out the eyes, but they've done it too much, and it looks like they're wearing sunglasses. It's quite hilarious because you have this kind of like medieval setting, then you have these guys pop up, and it looks like they're all wearing sunglasses. It looks kind of ridiculous, I've got to say. The graphics on that are not particularly good, and you can kind of see like the makeup effect when it finishes around the head and stuff like that. So they haven't kind of like gone far back enough to kind of make these guys look like these pasty ghouls or whatever they're supposed to be. They look like guys in kind of like Swedish kind of like doom metal bands or something. So it's quite funny. The action as well looks like a kind of recreation of a history documentary. The choreography is a little on the weaker side, and you can kind of clearly see people kind of pulling their swings and things like that, so it doesn't look particularly brutal. And the funny thing is, the kind of the battles that we see are all very, very small scale. Like I said, this is a low budget film. It doesn't have the kind of the extras and stuff to make it seem like this big epic battle. I've got to say, it did have a certain charm to it. Like they've done quite good work in regards to the costumes and stuff like that. It does look kind of rustic and have a kind of a medieval feel. It just doesn't really feel like a particularly well-produced film. So if you are wanting something along the lines of a higher budget sort of cinema release, even the kind of like the lower tier ones like Gods of Egypt and stuff like that, this is like way down the kind of the budget that scale, if that makes sense. But nonetheless, if you like fantasy films, you kind of enjoy the low budget ones. It doesn't kind of like take itself too seriously, so you might kind of get a kick out of it. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. It was not a terrible film, but the kind of the low production value and the kind of just the cheapness doesn't doesn't help the ambitiousness of what this product is trying to do. Not a bad performance by the lead actor, though, and it did have a few kind of like decent kind of set design and costumes, like I've said. Overall, 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.